would say it has been a transformation. I would equate it to going from a manual machine to a CNC machine, that you have the repeatability, your storage of information. To me, it's just like going from a manual to a CNC machine.
Welcome to the Manufacturing Transformed podcast, where we dive deep into the world of manufacturing and uncover the transformational journeys of companies that are powered by ProShop. Get ready to explore the stories behind the machines, the people, and the innovations shaping the future of this industry. Welcome to Manufacturing Transformed. Real shops, real stories.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Manufacturing Transformed. I'm your host, Paul Van Meter. And today I had a really fun and just sort of heartwarming conversation with Craig Lange from Lange Machine and Tool in Wisconsin. This is a business that his father started after being laid off many years ago, over 50 years ago, from the business he was in. And he bought a drill press and a manual lathe and started Lange Machine and Tool. I love these origin stories that are just so humble and start from an inflection point of, something major happening in someone's life. We've heard this same story on the podcast many times before. And today they have a thriving business doing medium, small to quite large machines to 80,000 pounds, I believe is what Craig said. Their biggest machine is a twin spindle, twin column boring mill that can machine one very large part or work on two different parts independently. Very cool machine. I'd love to see that in person one day. But yeah, they put in ProShop about 5 to 6 years ago, got rid of paper travelers, have dramatically reduced the lead time in their office functions. What used to take them days, now Craig says he can get done in 5 minutes. They had an employee retire a few years ago, and they did not need to backfill that position, someone that used to do procurement. So, Craig says they would need at least one and possibly two additional staff today to do the volume of work that they're doing. And so that savings alone, has made a big difference in their business. What's unique about Lange, of course, as I mentioned, the size of the parts they make is, he mentioned in 2023, they did 2,300 work orders, all, average batch size of, I think, 5 or 6. But some of these parts start out very expensive, expensive forgings, castings, weldments, and they have to be exceedingly careful not to scrap those parts when they're setting them up and getting them on the machine. So he loves the ability to eliminate that tribal knowledge by taking photos, of setups. And so when they go to do that again, they have much higher confidence in it. So anyway, it's a great episode. I hope you enjoy listening to it, and let's get into it with Craig. Craig, welcome to the Manufacturing Transform Show. Good to have you here.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, Paul.
It's my pleasure. As I was saying before we hit record, we've kind of known each other for quite a number of years, and I really admire what I see of you sharing online about the way you guys are building your company and the types of work that you do. Just blows my mind, the scale of it. In fact, I've shared some pictures of what you do and that you've posted on LinkedIn in a slide presentation that I give to all new employees at ProShop. And I'm talking about the machining industry and the vast differences in the types of things that shops do. And I talk about the scale of different types of machining. And I have a picture of like a little micro part, and then I have a picture of one of your parts. And I'm like, look how big some of these things get. So anyway, thank you for sharing those things and kind of being inspiring about how cool and diverse machining is. And let's dig in. Let's start with tell the audience about your company, what you specialize in, and then let's get into your background of how you even got into this industry in the first place.
All right. So we are a family-run business. We've been in business for 52 plus years now. We do small batch sizing. So a big run for us is 5-6 parts.
Yeah.
And we're small parts from that quarter pound ish up to around 80,000 pounds.
80,000 pounds. Okay. That is, yeah, those are some of the ones I think I've shared pictures of. And so just, we haven't mentioned it yet, but Lange Machine and Tool Company. And where exactly are you located?
We're in Merrill, Wisconsin, so halfway between Eau Claire and Green Bay, right in the center part of the state.
Okay.
My father started it when he second mortgaged the house back in 1973, and he still owns it, but my sister and I run it on a day-to-day basis.
Your sister and you. Very cool. And how did he decide to start a shop?
He was working at an aluminum extrusion house in Wausau and got laid off and decided that, if I want to make it in life, I need to do better.
Mm-hmm.
So he decided to second mortgage the house and buy a drill press and a lathe and started from there.
Wow. I've heard more than a couple of stories of someone that got laid off from their job, decided this is the inflection point in time that I'm going to go ahead and start a business. And that's very cool. A drill press and a lathe. Well, you guys have come a long way since. So how many machines and folks do you have on the team today?
We have 17 employees, and machines right around 20.
Okay.
So we have a little more. We have two of the original machines yet, the tool room drill press and a tool post or a pedestal grinder.
Okay.
Those are the original machines that we still have yet.
That's fun.
But they're all CNC except for two of them.
Okay. And tell us about the machine that can handle, or machines that can handle 80,000 pound loads.
Okay. So our big floor type horizontal boring mill, we can go 12 feet tall by 62 feet in between spindles. So 720 inches roughly.
Wow. You say in between spindles. Tell us about what you mean by that. I thought a big boring mill like that only had one spindle.
Yep. This one has two. So there are two columns that ride along a common runway.
Okay.
And they can machine parts. One part that's that long, they can both work on the same part, or we can be machining two separate parts
At the same time.
Wow.
Are they controlled off of one controller? Or do they have their own independent controllers for each?
Independent.
You just got to make sure they don't crash into each other.
Yeah, and there's interlocks for that.
Okay.
That keep them separated, that they'll stop.
Right. If you put a G1 move, both going to a place where they'll hit each other, it'll say, nope, you shouldn't do this.
Yes.
That's cool. Wow. Very neat. Okay. So that's certainly what makes you guys unique. You can do from smaller to very, very large stuff. What are the industries that you serve the most?
Our big two are mining and foundry.
Okay.
So, but we do a lot. We do oil and gas, pharmaceutical, hydro, just kind of a variety to try and keep us on a steady path.
Mm-hmm. And do you find that most of your customers kind of gravitate towards the bigger parts, that maybe there's less competition, or you have a unique niche there?
Most of our customers are into the bigger work, but we do mining. We'll do smaller stuff. We'll do like a 300-pound part.
For some people, that's huge.
It's famous. Yeah. And that's same as the foundry. Right. We'll do 1-pound parts for a specific customer and then bigger.
Right. Okay. Like, as I was saying earlier, machining is such a varied industry, and, not all shops are created equal, obviously. Right. We have a client that specializes in Swiss machines, and he delivers some of his parts in little glass vials. Literally, he'll like fill up like 1,000 parts in a glass vial that's 3 inches tall, and he calls it in his like crack vials of parts because they're more valuable. It's like $20,000 of parts that fit in a tiny little vial.
That's exactly true. That I admire a little Swiss or micro machining, how delicate the parts are and how you need to process that
Mm-hmm.
and machine them.
Yeah.
But people look at our parts sometimes with some big frames we're actually doing right now that are 13 foot 2 by 25 feet.
Right.
And everybody thinks they're solid and rigid, and they're terrible.
Flexing all over the place.
And they flex and they vibrate.
Right.
We have to hold them so that we don't warp them and, hold the tolerances that the customer wants.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, completely unique challenges. Some common themes, obviously, feeds and speeds and all that. But we actually, when I was, I'm just infatuated with this idea of small and big. And we actually did an episode of making chips last year where we did micro and macro machining. And we had a shop. They're actually down in Australia and they specialize in micro machining. And they're traditionally watchmakers, but they've also gotten into, aerospace and defense contract manufacturing, and using drills that are like point 8 micron drills that are like 2,000ths in diameter or less, just absolutely tiny. And then we had
Yeah.
a big company that does machining and subtractive and additive, but school bus size stuff. It's more similar to you guys. And the big company, and this was the first I'd ever heard of it, he said sometimes they hire a rigging company just to come put the workpiece on the machine. And I'm like, wow, that is a very unique challenge when you don't even have the cranes big enough or heavy enough to actually put the workpiece on your machine. So
that's heavy.
And
heavy.
The chips, are 100 times bigger than the actual parts of what someone else is making, right? Chips that are a couple inches long, kind of thing. So anyway, very cool. And then how long have you been involved since your dad started the business and you and your sister got involved?
Full time since I graduated college in '96.
Okay.
But ever since I could walk, I've been in the shop.
Okay. True family business.
Yeah, I've been deburring holes on the drill press when I was 8 and cutting keyways when I was 10.
Oh, amazing. All right. So tell us a little bit about what was going on with the business when you decided you needed some kind of software and started researching ERPs or whatever that eventually led you to choose ProShop to help run the company.
Yeah. Traditionally, we started out, doing everything by hand, work orders by hand, all blueprints out in the shop, the guys writing down their time. And then we started, because we had a lot of repeat parts with customer, that we started doing what we call cost cards. So we would write the cost, figure out the cost manually on each one. And it just labor intensive. So in '98, we started developing our own access program.
Okay.
Which saved, it was access database. So we were able to search and by part number and figure out different things. But we still had to manually input from the guys in the shop to that database to make it searchable. And that required almost a full-time guy doing that.
It's expensive.
Yeah. So right around 2019, I started looking at there's got to be a better way. So I started looking at some of the popular ERP softwares out there. I won't say their names, and just talked to a couple customers that I knew that had them, and they were not happy with them.
Right.
Said there was a lot of stuff they had to enter yet, and it still wasn't right. So I stumbled upon ProShop on YouTube.
Okay.
Actually.
YouTube, all right.
And started watching your videos, and I'm like, this is making sense. So I searched you out on the internet and worked through it and talked to my sister, and I'm like, I think this will work for us. And she's like, well, whatever you think. So we made the plunge, and 6 months of training in. We went live back in 2021, and haven't looked back since.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I just pulled up my email and I'm searching here, and I see the very first ticket, which I think was for the chat tool we had. Yeah, it was the chat tool we had on our website at the time. Was back in May of 2019. You were asking some questions about keeping track of parts on the floor. So you did some good due diligence through that period of time.
Well, I tried. We looked at a lot of different products.
Yeah, sure.
And tried to figure out what was best for us.
So when you started watching those YouTube videos and saying, "Oh, this, looks like it makes more sense," do you remember what attracted you? What resonated with you that seemed different than the other systems?
I like the inclusivity of the estimating to the part flow all the way through to invoicing. And then I watched the when you had Pro CNC and then you worked with I don't remember the name of the aerospace company, but you worked with them, and he worked part-time for you, and he said we need the software.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's where that kind of sold me on this is what we need.
Yeah, that was Rich Olson from South Aero Marine. So still a dear friend and a great client, going on, let's see, 2026. So going on 12 years now, something like that. So 12, 13, no, more than that. Jeez, sorry. I'm terrible at math. 2009. Yeah, we're going, that's a long time.
Yeah, a long time.
Very good. So and it's not, the idea of starting your own access database and building something from scratch, that so many shops do this. And, in some ways it's a blessing, because you can make it exactly how you want it. And you're like, let me add a button here and let me add this feature here. But it's also common that they then realize sometimes they've kind of painted themselves into a corner with the way their system works, and they can't actually make it work all the way that they want. Or maybe the person that developed it retired, and they realize they're kind of at risk of, having a system that's kind of fragile, that may not continue to operate long term. So, but anyway, glad that the things we were creating at the time resonated with you, and you jumped onto ProShop. So once you implemented, went through the training process and kind of got on board, maybe just share some of the things that changed or improved, whether it's office processes or out on the shop floor, getting rid of paper travelers, or whatever it was.
Office process changed because we were able to create a kind of like a pseudo part when we estimate.
Yep.
And then we can, we provide the quote, and then when the customer gives us an order for it, then we can create the part and make some tweaks if any are needed, and work through it. And then makes it easy to provide the routing out on the shop floor and material ordering. That greatly reduced our time in the shop or in the office getting an order out into the shop.
Just collapse the total lead time from the beginning till it was ready for the shop floor.
Yeah. And we've worked on that now, where 5 minutes I can have an order out on the floor from entry to being at the saw ready to go.
5 minutes. Okay. That's fast. And so previously did, when it was back on paper, and with your access database, did you still kind of have a paper traveler that you'd print out and would float around, the desks and then the shop floor?
Yes. And for some of our parts, we still print out the work order just to make some of our employees more comfortable.
Sure.
So that was kind of a compromise on some of it, but we would go out and we would check to see if we had stock. If we had material in inventory. If not, we had to go order it. for this specific job because we didn't keep track of material inventory, and now we keep track of material inventory.
So you can just check online to see if you have that material.
Yeah, I mean, it's a couple clicks and use your wheel and mouse wheel and away you go.
Okay. And with that reduced lead time on the front office, does that give you more time, presumably out in the shop, to actually get the work done? Like they have visibility of it sooner and can start thinking about work holding or fixturing or tooling or what have you?
That's quicker, yeah, or we can condense our lead times down.
Oh, actually just provide a shorter lead time to your customer then.
Yes, and we had a guy in the office that used to do a lot of material ordering and that, at which he has since retired. So we actually haven't replaced that spot.
Okay. So that's a full-time labor position that you're no longer incurring, but you're still getting things ordered and out the shop even faster than you previously had.
That is correct.
Wow. Okay. That's very nice. So you mentioned still printing some things to help the guys be comfortable. Let's talk a little bit about the shop floor employees, how they've adapted to maybe some paperless, mostly paperless, what their reactions were at the beginning.
The beginning reaction was the older guys were not as happy.
Makes sense.
They were kind of frustrated with it, which I can understand because I got a couple guys in here that are not very computer literate. So we had to walk them through and hold their hand and kind of get them point A to point B. Some of the younger guys were all in, jumped in with both feet, and we're like, hey, this is cool. I can put pictures in here and I can do this and I can do that. And that enthusiasm spread kind of around the shop to more of the guys. And now most of them are doing it that way.
I love it. Okay. Yeah, that's often a common dynamic. The younger generation is excited and eager to, have something more tech forward and digital, and yeah, have tools that help them do their job better, remember things. And oftentimes they kind of need to gently kind of usher along some of the older folks that maybe aren't as computer savvy. Although I often, wonder and question, it's like, these same guys are using CNC controllers, which are very obscure and complicated, but at the same time, a modern web browser interface and a mouse is like, get this thing away from me. So it's funny. It's funny.
Yes. And to bring up a point that you just had about, remembering things, tribal knowledge in our shop was huge because we would do parts that we would do a part and then 3 years later we would do the same part. And it was, how we set this up. How do we do this? And if the same guy didn't do it, or if he forgot, then it was kind of like relearning it all over again. Where now with ProShop, we can put pictures in the part data. We can look at fixtures. We can measure out exactly where it was put, program number, specific tools if we needed, and that can all be put into that part. So the next time we get that, it makes it easier for us.
I love that. And that is contributing to faster repeat setup times, lower scrap rates, or what are the impacts of having that tribal knowledge documented so well?
Just less setup time has been, I've seen that drop about 10%.
Okay. Just across the board.
Just across the board. Our scrap rate's pretty low to begin with because our volume is low. So our guys take the extra time to make sure the part's done right the first time.
Yeah, when you have an 80,000 pound part, you don't want to scrap that. The stakes are high, so
no,
it's not like starting with a $3 chunk of aluminum, and if you scrap it, it doesn't really matter that much. The stakes are much higher.
Correct.
Kelsey once said that, and maybe this is part of it, not part of your comment about setup production. He said, confidence in a machinist like translates into speed. right? If they're confident that they have the right G code, they have the right tools, they have the right fixture, they have, they're just going to go faster. And does that resonate with you? Rather not just trying to figure out what you did last time. If maybe pre ProShop it was just much less obscure of what the setup was, and there wasn't photo documentation of it. So you just are genuinely trying to figure it out what you did before. But do you think that also just that idea of a more confident employee just works faster because they're more sure they're not going to make a mistake?
I would 100% agree with that. That if you give the employees all the tools that they need, they will definitely be more productive. That they don't have to go, they're not questioning the program. The program has been proved. They know it's right. They know what tools are needed. They know the clearances that they have for a specific tool, that they can pretty much hit the button and walk away and the part will run.
Nice. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm glad that's been your experience. That's wonderful. Do you, so maybe just following up on that, we'll tie a bow on this idea. We often hear clients talk about like having less frustration, maybe generally in the shop, because people aren't searching for travelers, or not, searching for tools as much, or just, trying to recreate the wheel. Does that resonate? Does that make sense that like there's just less frustration with things that are kind of, just more of a hassle, and they can just do their job, part of their job they love the most, and just like be efficient and directly working towards, getting good parts out the door?
We had a standing joke with when we were still on paper with our foreman, that he would grab it once in a while. And even he admitted to it, that he put it down somewhere and then go do something else. And then we would lose it. And then we had to all kind of look for it. So it was kind of a, kind of a running idea. But now with having the travelers and, the written descriptions and photos all in digitally with the work order, it makes our machinists better, because they can focus on, looking at that, knowing the information is there. And if it's not crystal clear, they can change it.
Right. Yeah. Do you feel like they think they have more of a voice to input their ideas, their improvement suggestions, things like that? Because oftentimes I feel like there's more of a one-way direction of information from the office out to the shop, but there's less of a conduit for the machinist to really contribute to that knowledge base. And oftentimes when things are turned digital, it really helps improve that communication flow.
So I think in some respects we are different in that regard, that we don't have a set programmer. So all our machinists do the vast majority of the programming of the parts.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
So if they have questions on a setup or process, I'll get involved, or I'll kind of start it out in the estimating, as that, we do this first, this second, and go along, kind of lead them in the direction that how I think it should be made. And then they'll take it from there.
Right. Do you find that with that sort of digital workflow, from the estimate to the part to the work order, that you can convey more details yourself? I presume you do the estimating. Is that true?
I do, and my brother-in-law does.
Okay.
We do the estimating.
Nice. So because you're both, setting up the job with your kind of your idea of what the router looks like and the times, and putting in any notes about the setup, do you find that those machinists then can just work more autonomously off of what you've provided, compared to previous, where they would have to ask you a bunch more questions all the time? That's something I hear quite frequently.
Yes, I would agree with that. That we used to get a part, and it used to be a lot of conversation back and forth on how it was estimated, how I set it up, or how I figured it should be set up. Where now, if I do my due diligence on how I figure the setup should be done. They can just run with it.
Right. And does that let you just focus more on the things that are, kind of important to you and less just kind of questions all the time?
Yes, I feel like I have fewer fires to put out, where now it's more of, this weldment that we got in isn't 100% correct. Now I can take that and go back to the customer and get questions answered, or casting is not cast correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Can we either fix it or shift it to make it usable, or, scrap? General questions like that are more what I do now.
Okay. And I presume you like being able to work on those maybe more higher value things rather than answering basic questions about what you were thinking about something.
Yes, that's definitely, it has helped. I think the machinists understand, gives them more of a say in how to set stuff up,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't have to we don't pin it down as to, like, you do want it A, B, and C.
Sure.
I let them kind of decide, and that gives them more of a stake in the part.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So, because your machinists are all programmers too, do they have their programming workstations right out there at the machines? And do they tend to kind of own a machine each, or do they kind of flex around a lot more?
We have Guys do run multiple machines, but they tend to stay on one machine, and we have several seats of CAM software
Mm-hmm.
if, for some of the more complex work. Otherwise, it's programmed on the control.
Yep. Okay. And so, when you put ProShop in, did you put a bunch more shop floor computers out there, or did you already have some because they were out there using their CAM system for some of the more complex parts?
I think we probably quadrupled our computers out in the shop.
Okay.
So every machine now has a workstation by it. Most of them have, well, half have dual monitors.
Oh, nice. Yeah. That's a good ROI, I believe.
Yes. Just so you can get different views. You can have the work order and print pulled up or set up and different
Mm-hmm.
things. Or, well, we run Fusion 360 for our CAM software, and that they can have the print and have, the CAM software pulled up, and it just makes it nice that
Yeah.
way.
Very cool. So, I'm curious, with the fewer firefighting, that you mentioned that you're doing, you seem like you're the one that does the social media posting, or at least it comes across your profile. Are you doing that yourself, or do you have someone helping with that? And have you found you have more time to do that kind of thing since you're not fighting as many fires?
Lately, it's been the amount of estimates that I
Mm-hmm.
do that I don't have as much time,
Okay.
that I haven't been putting out as many posts,
Yep.
just because of the work. We've actually turned down a lot of work,
Mm. That's a good problem to have.
you know, yeah, last year and the year before, just because we can't get the volume out.
I'm just curious, unrelated to ProShop, but have you found that social media activity and sharing the cool projects you make has translated into people that have discovered you and sent you RFQs?
A few
Okay.
have. I, it's not been as well. I haven't gotten the work that I thought it
Mm,
would,
okay.
by people seeing
Right.
this big widget or that big widget. We need shop, we need Lange Machine to machine this part because they do similar
Hmm.
stuff. I haven't, I haven't really seen that return on that. Maybe it'll happen someday.
Yeah, it's the long game for sure, but I think you do a great job of it. Some of the photos you post are just just kind of wow, and based on the scale and complexity of what people are seeing. So keep it up as you can, but having too many things to quote right now and having to turn work away, it's a good problem to have. It's better than the alternative, I always say. So,
Oh, definitely. I think actually I did. I looked it up. Back in 2023, we had 2,157 work orders generated.
wow. In 2023, you had 2,100 plus work orders. Okay. That's a fair number, especially because each of your work orders is a very small quantity.
Yes.
That's a lot of.
So a good year for us is around 1,700.
Okay. So that was your 23 number. Was 24 and 25 similarly busy, or was that 23 kind of a peak?
That was a peak. 24 was 17 something.
Okay.
And this year was 17 or 18.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. That's a lot of stuff. And I guess it used to be 1,700 or 2,300 paper travelers. And so maybe that's a good segue. Could you keep up with that volume if you were still on your old system?
Not without extra people.
Okay.
I mean, either that or we would just lose data entry, which for what we call non-inventoried parts, we would not necessarily do all the steps to put them into our system.
Mm-hmm.
So we would kind of cheat a little bit on that.
Got it.
Which we don't have to now because ProShop keeps track of everything.
Mm-hmm. So you went live in 2021. Can you share sort of your approximate growth over the 2021 to 20, till more current times, percentage wise, or whatever makes sense for you?
Growth wise, we've grown about 15%.
Okay.
We're short of staff.
Yeah, that's
that's
problem.
That's really our holdback. Because we have a lot of our machines we could run two shifts on to keep things going. And right now I'm kind of looking at a different approach to how we manufacture our short run volume or our small batch volume. So we'll see if that pans out or not.
Okay. Just getting your spindles to run more often with fewer people.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. If you're not making chips, you're not making money.
That's a good saying. I love it. Okay. So, do you, I imagine like many shops, you have customers come and give you audits, or in the industries you serve, is that not as much of a thing?
A lot of our customers don't require inspection reports or anything like that. Our vendors, some require 100% inspection on every part for every dimension.
Some customers of yours do?
Yeah.
Okay.
And an audit, we get a few. Like every other year, we'll get a customer coming in with a specific requirement and they need an audit. And ProShop has helped that because of on ours, we have the ISO compliance. So we continue to work on building out our manual, our shop manual.
Yeah.
But the fact that we can trace stuff back with material certs on the purchase order entry side to, importing balloon dimensions to producing results all from ProShop and not having anything getting lost in translation has definitely helped.
That's fantastic. And has it just helped make those audits a little easier for you, less prep work, or is it more just sort of impressing your customers with the systems that you have in place to give them confidence, or both maybe?
A little bit of both. Our just the first article and the in-process inspections from ProShop. Some customers are saying these are the best reports I've ever gotten. Listed out, which is good, and other ones are happy that we have that type of inspection process. for them for the parts that they want.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah. I've, as many know, I've been a long believer in that idea that, that showing your customer the robust systems you have in place is a confidence booster and does reduce their perception of risk working with you as a vendor, and that often will translate into more RFQs and more work and growth for the business. So that's great that your customers are feeling that. Can you share, I don't know, a feature or an aspect of the system that you just could not live without anymore?
Boy, I think there's too many to be honest, but I really like the estimating part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I like to be able to build that traveler, and I put in the quantities when I start
Mm-hmm.
that the customer orders, and it gives me the price break,
Yep.
from 1 to 100 or whatever quantity that they want. And that makes it nice in that respect. I like the inspecting part of it, where the machinist put in the numbers, for the dimensions. Even the trending graph on the inspection is nice.
Yeah.
You can see if you're trending up or down, or for a tolerance aspect.
Yeah. Cool. Have you guys embraced the tooling module and putting your tools, in the system, sort of cataloged?
You mean RTAs?
Yeah,
Or
tools.
rotating tool
Tools. Well,
assemblies?
RTAs is kind of an extension of tools. You got to have tools to use RTAs, but yeah, that either module.
I do put the tools in. I put inserts in just for ordering for like COTS purposes.
Sure.
So I can order. That would probably be the one that I would say was probably needs a little improvement from my point of view,
Okay.
but it's still not. I mean, I'm not unhappy with it. I just think it probably could be better.
Yeah,
But it's still
the
good.
RTA module hasn't been touched in quite a while, and it lacks enough specific ability to build up different types of tool assemblies. It's relatively simple in its structure, and it definitely needs more sophistication to be able to have different, bodies and arbors and inserts and extensions and whatever it might be, tool holders. So yeah, I know what you speak of, and it's definitely something that we're working towards. It's not as high on the roadmap as other things that people ask for, but yeah, it's a neat module, but you're right, it needs more work.
Yeah, and I do like that you can keep track of tool assemblies.
Yeah.
Or specific, if you have a custom holder that you can put in there, and that makes it nice that if you forget, you can just buzz in there and look at your assemblies versus walking out on the shop floor and going through the tool racks trying to remember, do I have this or don't I have this?
Yeah, for sure. Very good. So if you tried to imagine, you said you guys have grown about 15% since in the last few years, and you mentioned that you'd probably need more people to keep up with the volume if you were still on the old system. You already mentioned the person that used to do tool ordering, or maybe ordering material and such. Do you know? Do you think you could get by with one other person, or do you think you need even more sort of in these sort of overhead positions than you do today?
It would probably be 1+.
Okay.
Especially if we were to, it would take more than that, probably 2, if we were trying to achieve the same level of documentation as we have today.
Sure. And that level of documentation sounds like it's an important aspect to you today, to keep it at that level.
I feel it is, and I keep trying to push my machinists to get it to a level where we can take a person that has not run this job, has some machining background, and can set up that part without having to ask questions.
That's a good goal. That's a very good goal. Yeah, I've definitely seen and talked to customers that have had relatively inexperienced employees come on board who have maybe even sometimes no machining experience, but pretty mechanically adept, good with tools, good with working with their hands, and able to, set up a 5-axis mill, following photos and videos that were left by the programmers or by the machinists, on day shift or what have you, and do it, within a few months of being hired with no experience whatsoever. And it's a pretty neat thing to be able to say that you can do, and I feel like it opens the door to hire folks that might be a good cultural fit and they would be a great addition to the company, but they just don't have that experience, which is so hard to find these days, and just getting up to speed to be productive and contributing quite a bit quicker than they could otherwise.
I agree, and that's one huge hurdle for us right now, is that because of our batch size and the parts that we do, to be able to confidently have somebody do these parts takes a long time.
Yeah.
That you don't have to, mentor them so where they can be like working on their own.
Yeah. And I think, based on what we've talked about, the size of parts you make, the batch sizes, the complexity, you're probably in that sort of category of shop where this would be harder than for many that might be, doing less setups and running jobs for, many days or weeks at a time. But with, around 2,000 or so jobs per year, with your number of staff and the volumes you're talking about, there's lots of changeovers, lots of setups, lots of breakdowns all the time. And those, as we said, those parts can be expensive, right? Those castings or forgings or weldments or whatever. You got to be super careful to not not scrap the one out of the 3 parts that you've been provided.
Yes, that is a main concern with us when it comes to parts like that, is not scrapping them out.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Mad respect to the work that you do, because it's. I mean, I'm sure you've heard me say this is the hardest. I think it's the hardest business in the world, and the types of things that you do is way up there in the spectrum of shops doing hard things. So, I wanted to maybe ask just one or two of the things that you guys have done over the years, of any kind, that you think were some of your biggest wins and most strategic moves you've made. Obviously having a business that's endured this long is a lot more than many shops. So yeah, what have you done? What have you done so well to help you thrive?
I think the one of the best moves that we made as a company was getting bigger equipment to kind of put ourselves in kind of a different class of customers. And I would say along with that, having the right customers is definitely important. That customers that'll work with them, with a machine shop, instead of trying to be the antagonist and always trying, can we get an extra dollar out of you? Can we get it sooner? Can we this? Can we that? I think is also is one of our successes.
Do you feel like that? I mean, what you're describing to me is the whole concept of being, a niche business that specializes in something that's maybe a little bit different than many. And your size capability is absolutely one of those. But do you feel like that because you've niched, down to bigger parts, that gives you the opportunity to be more selective with your customers and work with the ones that are more collaborative with you as opposed to being those more antagonistic ones?
I would think so, Paul, that has something to do with it. But we actually got a pair of customers that we are 40, we've been doing work with for 40 years.
Wow.
And I mean, we've worked through several purchasing agents and, different things. And it's just, I think it's finding that combination of customer that you work together with, I'm going to say, helps. And then, onto that, buying the right machine tools and software. You know, if you, if you buy a Ferrari and put Fleet Farm tires on it, or tractors, tractor supply tires, you're not going to have a Ferrari. You're going to have a Tractor Supply, but in the right application, each one has its use.
Yeah. Okay. I like it. So maybe as we kind of look to wrap up here, if you could kind of summarize, this show is called Manufacturing Transformed, and our goal is to tell the transformation story of companies that have moved on to ProShop. And so maybe if you could just kind of summarize your experience with using, working with us for these many years now, and do you feel like it has been a transformation?
Yes, I would say it has been a transformation. I would equate it to going from a manual machine to a CNC machine, that you have the repeatability, your storage of information. To me, it's just like going from a manual to a CNC machine.
I like that analogy. So
I figured I'd keep it in the machine tool
Yeah.
world.
No, I mean, that's relatable, right? A very manual type process to get an outcome. You can still do amazing things with a manual, but it just takes longer and takes a lot more skill, different skills. But yeah, CNCs just enable lots of things that are not possible with manuals. So very cool. I like that. All right, Craig. Well, if people want to learn more about Lange Machine and Tool, where would you direct them?
You can go on LinkedIn and Google or type in Lange Machine. We have a website, langemachine.com, or you can email me directly or Craig at langemachine.com.
It's pretty easy to remember. Awesome. Well, Craig, this has been delightful. Thank you again so much for choosing ProShop so many years ago. I'm glad you were searching around on YouTube one day and found my videos. And it's an honor to work with you and help support the growth of Lange Machine. And I presume that at some point in the future, your dad will kind of pass the reins on to you and your sister. Is that what's going to happen? Or you'll buy him out somehow or something, hopefully there's a succession plan.
Yeah, tentatively. That's kind of the plan.
Does your dad still come into the shop?
Yes, he comes in every morning and makes coffee and does some assemblies, deliveries, whatever he can to kind of be helpful. And if I need guidance, which I do sometimes, I'll ask his opinion, and he kind of tells me what he would do, and I'm like, okay.
Oh, that's a special thing. Very cool. Awesome. Well, thank you again for being on the show and sharing your journey. I really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you another time soon. Thank you, Craig.
All right. Thank you for having me, Paul.